Do you want to wake up feeling like you're stepping into who you're meant to be, into the best possible version of you? What if I told you that the key to your best life, health, and happiness are all around you? You just have to find what works for you. I'm Hope Pedraza, and I believe that there isn't just one way to live a healthy and meaningful life, and that all you need is a little inspiration to make changes that last from the inside out. Each week, I'll be sharing tangible tips and inspirational interviews to help you on your journey. These are the steps to take to improve your life and live with purpose. This is Hopeful and Wholesome. Hey y'all, welcome back to Hopeful and Wholesome. Doing just a quick episode today, and I want to talk a little bit about weight loss. Not something I typically talk about just because, I don't know, I feel like this is somewhat of a loaded topic. And for me, as you've probably heard me mention before, it's never about the weight. This is kind of how I got into this world. When I first started doing this at my studio in Balance, I was working with women, and every single one of them were coming to me because they quote unquote wanted to lose weight, or they wanted to tone up, right? They had those 5 pounds or the 10 pounds. And, sometimes there was 20, 30 plus pounds, but it was all about the weight. And when I started working with these women, I realized it's actually not about the weight at all. Like, they had deep issues with inflammation and their thyroid and hormones, and learning later about, stored trauma and what that does to the body. So it's never about the weight. And that's kind of what I want to lead this conversation into. And even though this is kind of a quick episode, it's just been coming up a lot in my world with a lot of my clients, which is interesting because it's not always what people are coming to me for. Sometimes it's kind of a secondary thing. It's not exactly what they're coming to me for, but they're like, oh, it'd be nice to lose, 15 pounds or whatever. But I've had more women where it's for them, it's the main thing. And typically I am, I guess I was going to say hesitant. I think that is the word I'm looking for. I am hesitant to work with clients where that's their first goal, just because I know, and when they're adamant about it, because I know how it works, and the weight is always the last thing to go. And for people where that's their first goal and that's their first main issue, and it's not happening the way they want it, it doesn't usually turn out that well, right? That their mindset takes a hit and they think nothing's working. And so I am hesitant to work with people when they're leading with the weight loss thing, and they're adamant about it. And I have turned clients down and, recommend they find another practitioner, just because I could foresee the future, and I could foresee kind of what the troubles are going to be throughout the process if they're only focused on the weight. And so I wanted to mention that just that piece of it, how it's never about the weight. And if in fact the weight is an important thing for you, that the weight is always the last thing to, right itself, quote, right itself, right? It's the last thing to get kind of balanced out and fixed. So when we're talking about the weight conversation, it's usually what I see is one of probably 4 things. First is inflammation, right? If there's inflammation in the body, your body's not going to lose weight, right? It's going to hold on to weight. It just kind of starts to make things work a little sluggishly, right? So your thyroid is going to work sluggishly. Your thyroid is responsible for your metabolism. Your adrenals are going to work sluggishly, and your adrenals work with the thyroid and your metabolism. So, right, it just kind of slows things down, and it's more of like a protective mechanism for your body. And then there's gut and parasites, which really are contributing to inflammation. And so when there's parasites in your gut, things going on in your gut, there's really extreme dysbiosis. It's a stressor on the body, and any stressor in the body is a really good reason for your body to hold on to weight. It's a really good reason. Again, it's just kind of slowing down processes. And the other one I'd say is adrenal issues, which again kind of goes with these all are really related. I think there's no one thing. These are all related, but people want an answer, and these are usually one of the few answers that I would give them of why why the weight's staying stuck. And it's adrenal or cortisol dysregulation, right? When you can go back and listen to my episode about the adrenals and kind of how that part of the body works. But when your adrenals, which are responsible for the stress response, when they are constantly stressed and you're constantly pushing out cortisol is our stress hormone, and it is really a driver of inflammation. So the push of cortisol is pushing out inflammation into the body, and then it's messing with your blood sugar, which is messing with your hormones, which is messing with your metabolism, right? Y'all, it's this vicious cycle. It's just a constant loop. And so these are the three like physical things that are typically going on. And a lot of times it's all of these at once. Like I have multiple clients right now, and the weight for them is a big thing. And all of them have parasites. And some of them have multiple parasites. And it's a really frustrating process for them. And I feel for them. And I feel for if you're listening to this and you're in the same situation, I do. My heart goes out to you because I know how frustrating it is when you're doing the things, right? I'm following what you told me to eat. I'm not eating the things you told me not to eat. I'm working out. I'm doing all the things. And then nothing seems to change. But like I tell my clients, and I just mentioned before, the weight is always the last thing. Your body has to prioritize things. It can't do all the things at once. And the weight is not its top priority, right? Its top priority is survival. And we have to work on all kind of the most important things responsible for survival first. And so it has to prioritize things. It has to do one thing at a time. Now, yes, sometimes multiple things can fix themselves at a time, but in my experience, the weight is always the last thing. We got to work on inflammation. We got to work on the gut. We got to work on the adrenals, your blood sugar, all of those things first. The last piece that I want to mention, and can oftentimes be the most important piece, especially if you've done the work on the inflammation, the gut, the adrenals, and all that, and nothing is still working or nothing has worked. Nothing seems to be working. First, let me say this first before I mention this last piece. First of all, I also want to like put a disclaimer here that you got to give things time to work. And I have this conversation so often, and I get it. When you're in the thick of it, like you want it done and you want it done yesterday. You want it over. Let me be done with this. I don't, I get it, but you have to give it time to work. Like you doing a protocol for 90 days, it may not do the trick. You doing a protocol for 6 months, it may not do the trick. As I mentioned in a post I did a couple weeks ago, it takes sometimes 10 to 20 years for things to happen in the body to manifest these physical things on the outside of the body. Why the heck would 3 to 6 months do the trick? Why would that work? Why does that even sound remotely feasible or practical? It doesn't. And like I have one of my mentors that I work with human design. It was a different topic, but I thought I have a post coming out about this. I thought this is so accurate. But she said, we were talking about, when we're waiting for things to work in our business, like, how dare we sit at the feet of life, at the foot of God, and determine that what we're doing isn't working? Like, how dare we? We don't know if it's working. And if we're doing all the things and something is working, it just takes time, and it takes putting all the pieces together. And this last piece that I'm going to mention here, and you might know what I'm going to say, the last piece for me in this losing weight saga is the energetics. It's the stored trauma and emotions. And this, again, if you have done all these other things with the inflammation, the gut, the parasites, the adrenals, your work, you're doing your strength training, you're balancing your blood sugar, all the things, you have not addressed your stored trauma and emotions. This is causing dysregulation in the body. Again, think of this protective mechanism that your body is holding on to something to protect your body from something, from feeling something, from letting something go. Maybe you don't set strong enough boundaries. Maybe you've been in a narcissistic relationship. Maybe you've dealt with shame and guilt, and that's causing you to hold on, right? All of these things can cause the body to hold on to it. And I can promise you, as much as some of you might be rolling your eyes right now, me talking about energetics related to your weight, the fact that you can't lose weight, I can guarantee you that if you've done all the things and you haven't done this piece, this is the piece that's missing. I have had clients do emotional release sessions with me where we go into kind of this hypnotic state and we kind of identify where these stored emotions are and we work through it. And that was the thing they needed to start the snowball effect of the body losing weight. Like that was what it was. It was holding on to things. If there's dysregulation in the body and it's affecting, right, your root center, right? Your root center is that center for safety and security. So you've been in some traumatic event or situation that's affected your sense of security and safety. It's going to affect your adrenals. Those are the glands that are connected to the root center. Okay. If you've been in sexual trauma, you might have something stored in your sacral center, that's your center for your reproductive organs, and it's your center for sexuality and creativity. It's associated with your reproductive organs. That can be a reason. You could have been, if you were in a narcissistic relationship, or you have trouble speaking your truth or setting boundaries or worried about judgment or expressing yourself, you could have issues, blockages in your throat center. That's causing issues with your thyroid. That's affecting your metabolism. So do you see how, as woo as it might sound to say your trauma and your emotions are stored in your body, it's all related to these centers, these energy centers that I've talked through over the past, I don't know, what, 4 or 5 months. And it does affect your weight. It can affect your weight, right? It can be that. And when we are not allowing ourselves to work through these emotions and feel these emotions, go back and listen to the episode last week with Santa Melina Marshall about stored trauma in the body from sexual trauma. You were holding on to things. You were holding on to weight. You were holding on to toxins. You were holding on to chemicals. You were holding on to things in the body. And this can absolutely affect your ability to lose weight. And the other piece of that, the shame and the guilt, those are really powerful emotions. And those can show up in so many different ways. It can be from, what we might consider silly situations that we were in as kids, right? It doesn't even have to be sexual trauma that we feel shame or guilt, but it can be something that just happened to get stuck in us and stored from something, a girl said to you in the second grade that can get stored in the body. And so often this shame and guilt kind of turns up as frustration in the body, I find. And I have even some current clients now and past clients who, they're so frustrated with the process because they feel like nothing's working. And then they turn the protocol into this like really serious thing and beat themselves up when they, aren't following it 100%. But when they allow themselves a little bit of grace and a little bit of, hey, I may not like these extra, 20 pounds that I'm carrying on my body, but I'm going to love my body where it is. I'm going to be grateful for my body for what it can do for me right now. I can be grateful for the process. I can love myself in the process. When they're able to shift that and let go of the shame and the guilt and just the forcing that they're pushing on their body, which typically comes from the shame and the guilt, trying to be perfect, right? That's usually like a heart center thing. It's just releases something. It releases the pressure. It's like I told one of my clients this a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about this, and she had this kind of release of like, I'm going to own it right now. Like, I'm going to wear this crop top, even though I may not be exactly where I want to be. I'm going to wear these pants, And I said, it's like when you hear about these families that have so much trouble getting pregnant and, they have fertility issues. And then when because they're so stressed about it, right? It's a stressful time. They just want the baby. They just want it. That's what they just want it. And it's so stressful. And then, they finally kind of relinquish control and they're like, well, I guess we'll just adopt, right? We'll just do that instead. Maybe we were meant to adopt. And then like 2 months later, she gets pregnant naturally, right? Because they've released the stress and the pressure and the guilt and the shame around that. The guilt and the shame around that is related to like, God, why can't I just freaking get pregnant? Right. And they feel some sort of way. And I'm telling you, guilt and shame are so powerful and it affects your physical body so much. And I think so often we don't know how much of that we're holding on to. Again, it doesn't have to be from like a big T trauma. It can be from little T things, but it just gets stored in the body. That was a long-winded answer for me to tell you that your stored trauma and emotions can be contributing to you losing weight. But I find that when we can, like, the identifying the awareness piece is huge. And that's why I like these emotional release sessions that I do with my clients, because we can identify it and we can talk about it and we can be with it and then we can release it. That's it. It's just being aware of it. It's that awareness where we become aware of it so we can let it go. And that's how it works. And that's how we can release this stored stagnant energy in the body. I heard this story, this meditation guru was telling about something she tells her kid, this story she tells her kid about, that there was a boy who was scared of a monster in his room. And, he would see this monster and he'd run away and hide. But when he finally turned and faced the monster, that's when the monster disappeared. And that so often is all that's required for us to let go of this stored trauma and emotions that's holding our physical body back from healing and from doing what we really want it to do. In this case, I'm talking about losing weight, but it could be a lot of things. We have to turn and face these pieces within us, identify them and face them, look at them in the face, and then we can let them go. They just need our awareness. It's like a kid who wants your attention, right? They just need your awareness and then they'll leave you alone. And if you are beating your head against a wall with this piece and you feel like you've done all the things, then whether it's me or somebody else, reach out to someone who can help you with this trauma and emotions part, with the energetics of this. There are energetics around healing the physical body that have to be addressed. So reach out. Let me know if you need help, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Hopeful and Wholesome, y'all. If you found value in this week's episode, please subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review to let me know what you thought. I'd love to know what you find useful in these episodes so I can know how to provide the most value I can to my listeners. And if you have topics you'd like to know more about, I'd love to hear those as well. So shoot me a message on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. It's @TheHopePedraza, or you can visit my website, hopefulandwholesome.com. Thanks, y'all.